What was the incident at your school? Dangerous with Forks said. Some 12th graders thought it would be a brilliant idea to open cans of pepper spray and run down every hallway in the school as a prank during the lunch period. The hazardous chemical unit, ambulances, and police were called cause half the school couldn't breathe and the other half couldn't see. Needless to say, they weren't smart about it cause they appeared on multiple cameras throughout the school and were appropriately prosecuted. Dangerous with Forks said. Some 12th graders thought it would be a brilliant idea to open cans of pepper spray and run down every hallway in the school as a prank during the lunch period. The hazardous chemical unit, ambulances, and police were called cause half the school couldn't breathe and the other half couldn't see. Needless to say, they weren't smart about it cause they appeared on multiple cameras throughout the school and were appropriately prosecuted. Dangerous with Forks said. As far as I know, pepper spray is actually illegal for use by the general public in Canada. You may face a fine of up to $500,000 and maximum 3 years of jail time. Pepper spray designed to be used against people is considered a prohibited weapon. The relevant regulation says that any device designed to be used for the purpose of injuring, immobilizing or otherwise incapacitating any person by the discharge therefrom of a tear gas, mace or other gas, or b. any liquid, spray, powder or other substance that is capable of injuring, immobilizing or otherwise incapacitating any person. Only police officers are allowed to use pepper spray that was designed to be used on people. Sometimes there is a bit of leniency if you've used pepper spray as self-defense. But the fact that these idiots used pepper spray on hundreds of unsuspecting high school kids, with no reason other than having fun, must have landed them with a fine, and possibly charges of assault with a weapon and administering a noxious substance. Category Kiwi said. I agree with you, I just felt compelled to further explain the logic. The problem with it even in self-defense is that you had it in the first place. That means with premeditation you were carrying an illegal weapon. We might disagree with it being banned in the first place, I do, but that's a different argument. If the government considers it a weapon worthy of being illegal, and have labeled it as such, you must apply the logic to it. If someone was carrying a gun loaded with poisoned bullets or a napalm flamethrower, these are very widely illegal and for good reason, and use them in self-defense. Would you think the government should just ignore the fact that they hadn't used these items even though it was self-defense? The same logic applies. Once the weapon is labeled illegal, again, whether we agree with that or not is irrelevant to this process, its use shouldn't be ignored even in self-defense because it was wrong for them to have it in the first place. Now if you want to say pepper spray being illegal is stupid, I wholeheartedly agree with you, and you'll have no fight from me. If you want to say using pepper spray in self-defense is reasonable, I still agree. But given the assumption that it's currently illegal, we should totally fight to change that, but that doesn't make it unpunishable to ignore that rule. Thetamuti said. Someone wrote a time and date followed by leave school on a bathroom stall door. The entire school was evacuated that day, outside, into large groups in the 95-degree heat with no shade. Police dogs and a bomb squad came to search the school. Every locker gone through, every desk, every backpack, nothing found. 6 kids passed out from the heat. There was talk about bomb threats and shooter threats but nothing ended up happening. 2 years later I learned that there was supposed to be an off-campus trip for a small group of pay kids that day that would have left around that time. It's likely some idiot wrote that as a reminder. Thetamuti said. This was my thinking too. If someone actually had a weapon or bomb on them, it would have been much more catastrophic the way they handled it. I didn't realize it at the time, but everything about that situation was made so much worse by the response. I'll admit, it was quite a long time ago, and I'm sure things would be handled much differently if it were to happen today, but damn, that could have been a really tragic event. The day after the incident we had a full school assembly to debrief what happened and why. Everyone in the school, in one large room with only 2 exits and only one police officer who gave a short speech about safety and why they take those threats so seriously. No one checked my backpack, and I even brought it into the assembly with me, as did a ton of other kids. Thetamuti said. This was my thinking too. If someone actually had a weapon or bomb on them, it would have been much more catastrophic the way they handled it. I didn't realize it at the time, but everything about that situation was made so much worse by the response. I'll admit, it was quite a long time ago, and I'm sure things would be handled much differently if it were to happen today, but damn, that could have been a really tragic event. The day after the incident, we had a full school assembly to debrief what happened and why. Everyone in the school, in one large room with only 2 exits and only one police officer who gave a short speech about safety and why they take those threats so seriously. No one checked my backpack, and I even brought it into the assembly with me, as did a ton of other kids. Thetamuti said. Teachers started losing control of the room, futilely trying kids to go to the auditorium and most not listening. FD on scene, and a wailing and hysterical trapped fat kid, of which I was also one, so no personal judgment there, was too much excitement to miss. FD had the kitchen staff get a bunch of Crisco and they made the kid take off his shirt and started wiping him down with it. To their credit, the school staff in the lunchroom tried to shield the view from the 100 or so kids remaining, but we, being the little assholes we were, climbed on tables and whatever else to see. They got him out using the cooking grease. Like I said, he probably could have fit without it and he remained calm, but it's gotta be scary as shit for a kid, and it's quite lucky for him this happened in the 80s so there's no video footage of it. Still, the cruelty of children isn't new, and he was known as Butterboy or Butterball around the school from then on. Sexual assault. Adams said. One girl in my year all of a sudden was absent from school for a little over a month. No one knew why, including her boyfriend who she had cut all ties with out of the blue. It turns out she left because she was pregnant with her brother's kid and had a miscarriage. The news spread like wildfire and soon her father complained to school about the bullying and we all got a verbal warning with kids getting detention. She then left and moved to a new town. Her close friends say it all happened because they were messing around after she got out of the shower and it slipped in. They got addicted to the risky feeling and conceived a child. Jorky Bjork said. Was in 4th or 5th grade. My school was surrounded by nature, hills, etc. Some kids were playing in the forest when a big boulder got loose and landed on a kid, crushing him to death. This happened during recess and kids came running down from the hill crying, so naturally we all ran to see what happened. I still remember seeing this poor kid's legs sticking out from under the boulder. Just a freak accident but horrible for everyone involved. Teachers gathered us all and spoke about what happened, etc. My head teacher broke down when talking about how they freed the kid and how peaceful he looked when freed, etc. This was one hard-ass teacher as well, and it made a huge impact as well just seeing him break down in front of us all. Finna Chronicles said. I was the incident. When I was 14 I went to a new toy and gag store that opened in my town. They had these sink bombs that were little bags of sulfur. I believe they were called fart bombs. They had a dude bent over letting one rip on the cover. Anyways, 14-year-old me thought it would be a funny prank to bring these stink bombs to school and let them off in the girls' bathrooms. So I did. I set off 8. Fast forward maybe 30 minutes or so. Over the school intercom all students report to the sports fields in single file as if we're having a fire drill, and then the fire alarm goes off. The school ended up being closed for the whole day because the sulfur in the little packets did not stay in the ladies' bathroom. It got sucked up through the school HVAC system and spread to every classroom. School was closed for the day, and after a week suspension and a $1,200 fine for a hazmat team to come in and make sure everything fine, I was back in class. I was referred to as the stink bomber for my remaining time in high school. Finna Chronicles said. I was the incident. When I was 14 I went to a new toy and gag store that opened in my town. They had these sink bombs that were little bags of sulfur. I believe they were called fart bombs. They had a dude bent over letting one rip on the cover. Anyways, 14-year-old me thought it would be a funny prank to bring these stink bombs to school and let them off in the girls' bathrooms. So I did. I set off 8. Fast forward maybe 30 minutes or so. Over the school intercom all students report to the sports fields in single file as if we're having a fire drill, and then the fire alarm goes off. The school ended up being closed for the whole day because the sulfur in the little packets did not stay in the ladies' bathroom. It got sucked up through the school HVAC system and spread to every classroom. School was closed for the day, and after a week suspension and a $1,200 fine for a hazmat team to come in and make sure everything fine, I was back in class. I was referred to as the stink bomber for my remaining time in high school. Euphoric Cucumber 193 said. The sports coach was accused of sexual assaulting a student in the locker room at my HS. I remember not being shocked because moms would fight over him behind the bleachers at football games, a married man. He banged about every mom that was living and breathing. I remember being so disgusted because he was many of my friends' coach years prior. But then came a huge plot twist. Turns out, allegedly, the superintendent set him up. Guess they were sharing the same mistress, who was a teacher at the school, and he wasn't happy about it. The coach got off and I think might still be fighting the superintendent in court. The superintendent ending up resigning and taking a shit ton of taxpayers' money with him. He got to keep his pension or something like that. Anyways, the community was up in arms about it. I still don't know whose story to believe. Chicka DJ said, my junior year, a fight broke out at lunch between two guys. Those guys' friends joined in as backup, their friends joined in as backup, and on and on. It went until like 70 people were in this fight. School security were obviously outnumbered and couldn't stop it. This happened in the Central Quad. I was on the outskirts of the quad with some friends so I didn't see everything, but I distinctly remember seeing the principal tackle one of the students fighting. It was wild. An announcement was made to get to 5th period immediately and teacher and staff were ushering us inside frantically. The police showed up to the school and, before I made it into a classroom, I saw a few cops wearing riot gear. I'm not sure what happened then because we were all locked in classrooms. The school was on lockdown until 5 p.m. This started at about 11 a.m., and we had to be individually signed out by our parents to leave. The next day, there were rumors that 50 kids had been arrested. I don't think that's true, but at least a few had to have been. Flamingtricker94 said, got several. A senior prank went horribly wrong after releasing a ton of rats into the school leading to the participating seniors not being able to walk at graduation and paying for the exterminator bill. A few students got arrested. The after-class snitch ratted on the school drug dealers, so a couple students went on a manhunt and beat the crap out of him, which led to about 15 students getting arrested for assault and drug possession. Some crazy kid got suspended for making a jetpack out of 2 fire extinguishers and crashed into the teacher's lounge. The student was later expelled for jacking a school golf cart that the janitors and staff used for getting around and crashing it into the detention center. Janana Banana 777 said, sadly a student had a near-death experience on the playground. It was in elementary school too. My grade was going to the playground for recess as the lower grade was supposed to be going back into the school. As my grade approached we noticed the younger kid sort of standing there looking at something on the zip line. A kid was literally hanging in unconscious from the zip line. He jacket wad tied to the zip line and around his neck. The reason none of the younger kids said anything yet was because they didn't know if he was joking or not. I mean, the kid was a usual prankster but at the time he was blue so I don't understand how they didn't notice it was a serious situation. Well, our grade arrived and immediately took action. Keep in mind we were 5th graders, so we were young. A bunch of students ran to the student that was unconscious and started attempting to untie the jacket, which was really tight and hard to untie. Some kids panicked and started crying, and others went to calm them down. The lunch ladies, who were grown adults, did nothing useful. They threw down the walkie-talkie and didn't call for help. A student was smart and used the walkie-talkie to contact the front office to alert them of the situations. Some students who brought their phones called 911. Janana Banana 777 said, luckily the students who were helping were able to untie the jacket and the ambulance arrived thanks to the kids who called 911. The lunch ladies resented us ever since for handling the situation and saving the kid instead of them. That was supposed to be their job but they didn't do it, and for some reason they treated us poorly for the rest of the year for saving his life and doing what was right instead of them. Thankfully the kid made a full recovery. It was a crazy incident though. Miss Metal 6 said, TLDR, my friend got a brain injury that changed his personality and made him one of the popular kids but ended our friendship. A classmate got hit by a car while riding his bike home and suffered a severe brain injury. He was away from school for several months. I was his classmate in English and he was part of my friend group in the class. I remember how weird it felt coming to class and seeing his empty desk. He was back when the next school year started. His brain injury had changed his personality and he went from being a kind of shy, humble kid to really outgoing and funny, so he became one of the most popular people in school. He was no longer part of my friend circle though, and we didn't talk as much. Suitology said, our quarterback was known for being a shithead, getting involved in arguments or fights to de-escalate them, but really just wanted attention and to feel important. These two guys were arguing, not physical, just heated, and QB comes and runs up like he's stopping with I. Both kids were telling him to fuck off and one went to walk away, but QB was trying to make them shake hands, so he grabbed him by the shoulder and pulled him. Kid just turns around and says, I said fuck off, Andrew, and punched him in the throat. QB fell like a sack of bricks, landed on his ass and shot himself on impact, then continued his fall to hit his head on the ground and get caught. The shit literally splattered out of him like a chili-filled water balloon out of the top of his shorts. The hallway had blood and shit and it roped off with a tarp over it for 2 hours till hazmat came. Arizanim said, so many were at my high school, from the uranium incidents to dozens of suicides to handjobs in stairwells, still better sex ed than the classes, to student-teacher affairs. The one I'm going to talk about, however, occurred between two freshmen who were in a relationship. About a week before the incident, at lunch, they wandered across the street to eat, as was normal, and they were having an important conversation. One member of the relationship came out as non-binary, and the other, Malay, he, him pronouns, was uncomfortable with it, but nothing else of note happened then. The next week, the member who was uncomfortable with the other's gender identity, outright refused to use they/them pronouns, so they proceeded to stab him 11 times and castrate him. That was the incident during my high school that sticks out more than any other. Go said, the incident was World War III. Excerpted from Children of the Cold War, published on Reddit 7 years ago. In early 1964, I was in high school in Colorado Springs. The assassination of President Kennedy had been announced over the school PA system the previous November. First an announcement that the president had been shot, then that he had died. School was dismissed, and we all went through 3 days of wall-to-wall network coverage ending in drums and a flag-draped caisson. I mention this by way of saying that the PA system achieved a new level of credibility that day. Almost no one believed the first announcement. Like all military towns, Colorado Springs was divided into the townies and the military. Likewise, the schools had townie kids and service brats. All of us service brats had a pretty good idea of what would happen if WWII started. It had almost started in October 1962. It was weird. Our dads were leaving in the middle of the night. Our moms were crying. Whole families were leaving base housing to go live with relatives in Utah. The townies were business as usual. Not a clue. Service brats knew all about throw weights, and ICBMs, the UNBMEWS lines, megatonnage, fallout patterns, radiation sickness, blast radii. We had a good idea of how much of the US would be utterly destroyed immediately once WWII started. We expected it. The townies knew. Well, whatever townies know, I guess. They didn't know WWII. Go said, Colorado Springs was building the Combat Operations Center in Cheyenne Mountain, about the second or third priority target in the U.S. We also knew that if the balloon went up, Colorado Springs was going to be plate glass from Cheyenne Mountain to Austin Bluffs. No way to get out in time. So back to school in spring of 1964. I was sitting in English class on a sunny, but still cold, spring morning. The vice principal, the same person who had given us the news about JFK, came on the PA. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're still getting details, but it is my sad duty to tell you that we are at war. End announcement. Yeah. I was thinking pretty rationally. If they spotted them with the BMEWS, I've got about a half-hour maximum. If they spotted them at the dew line, maybe 15 minutes, less actually. What to do? I don't know how many science fiction stories I had read basically asking what would you do with days, hours, minutes to live. Start raping cheerleaders? Run amok? I decided I wanted to die outside. I left class and went out on the lawn, with a nice view of Cheyenne Mountain. I sat down and waited. It was eerily quiet in the Springs. Seemed appropriate for a soon-to-be-dead town. Other scenes were enacted around school. Some teachers broke down crying. Someone in chem lab decided that now is the time to see what happens if you pour some chemical on a Bunsen burner. I saw the hole burnt in the lab ceiling later in the day. A lot of people just started walking around, like me. Go said. So I waited. It was too quiet. I got up and went back inside. Teenagers don't have the patience to wait for death with dignity. I got back inside just in time to hear the second PA announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we have more information. As I told you, it is my sad duty to tell you, we are at war with Pueblo Central High School this weekend on the basketball court. Yeah, no. The vice principal almost lost his job. He was a good guy, but a townie to the core. Turns out he had fallen in with evil companions. We had, so help me, a spirit committee to promote school spirit, which was composed of jocks, cheerleaders, student government leaders, I mean, who cares about student government, and other high self-esteem students destined to fill the ranks of real estate agents, used car salesmen and penny ante politicians. This was their idea. They thought it was genius. They were still arguing with people weeks later. Who the hell really thinks there could be a nuclear war on a moment's notice like that? You people are crazy. Yes. Yes, we were. So I found out what I'd do if WWII was upon us. I don't know what I do now for sure, but then I went for a walk and tried to prepare for death. Not many people can answer that sci-fi question. Good to know, don't you think? Even so, I'm glad that little bit of self-knowledge never came in handy. INKY Inspiration said. There was a forest next to our school campus. My friends and I would go walk on the trails in it during lunch or if we had a break in our class schedule. This was a German school and we had schedules more similar to college than high school. One year it was all closed off. 2 Malay students had taken advantage of a drunk girl in the woods. They did some terrible stuff and also took pictures. They got caught very quickly. Turns out none of them even went to our school. On a more personal note, my friend who sat next to me in science had a seizure during class, fell out of her chair, and hit her head on an open drawer behind her. It was terrifying and I didn't know what to do to help. Few Cup 3452 said. My senior year all got expelled on the last day for our senior prank. 8 of the story. Our school didn't supervise us when we were allowed into the school at night. Drinking age is 18 here, so people got drunk. Fireworks were let off. Neighbors mad. Police turned up. School mad. Reacted extremely. Was on the radio. School had to backpedal to not ruin our futures. The years before us did a midnight tagging of the school in chalk. We did that too, but we had alcohol and smoked weed. The legal drinking age here is 18, so most of the seniors were able to purchase alcohol themselves. People wrote mean things about shitty teachers. People also wrote nice things about loved teachers, but the mean stuff was horrible. We chalked higher than the other years had BC. We all knew how to get onto the roofs at my high school. My high school was open air, so no internal corridors. Kids got drunk and stupid. Fireworks were let off. Nearby neighbors called the cops. Everybody smart just left when we saw the cops roll up, but a fair few kids got arrested. Few Cup 3452 said. The next day we come to our last day. The last day is meant to be the seniors doing this parade through the school during class time and just in general being nuisances. Then we have an assembly. As soon as we got to school we were told to go to the assembly, where we were all promptly expelled, trespassed, and told that BC of us all being expelled, we can't sit our final exams and it's too late to find a new place to sit them. Seniors have their last day and then go on study leave to prep for exams, sit exams. We have a leavers dinner outside of the school and that's the last thing. By the time we left, it was first break, so students from all years saw us leaving. Some of us were having panic attacks. BC the exam results decide what universities we can go to. The whole situation made it onto regional radio. The school ended up having to send out apology letters and let us sit the exams at the school as previous planned. Rabid Frogs said. I went to or Girls Catholic School, and we were anything but holy. Our incident happened during my senior year. It was after Thanksgiving break and for some reason, the already booming underground weed operation was becoming even more successful. It's funny if you think about how intricate it all was. There was one supplier in each grade, all with their own merchandise up for sale and their own meeting spots. They had secret Instagram accounts to promote their products. Some even grew their own blends or baked their own brownies, etc. But anyways, the dealers had been selling more and more weed after we got back from break, but it wasn't the usual edibles that most people preferred. A bunch of the sophomores had started buying actual joints, using them in the bathrooms, and keeping the rest in their backpacks or lockers. Needless to say, it stunk up the hallways pretty quickly. This went on for about half a week before our principal called the cops. Dogs were brought in, they checked everyone's locker, and had us all stand in a line outside of our classes to empty our pockets and backpacks. A lot of girls were expelled that year. Ariel's 7th sister said, I went to a very small school, K-12, 5-18-year-olds, all in one building, the middle and high school, ages 11-18, classes were all upstairs. The technology teacher started getting angry at the students for moving stuff around in his dark room he uses for his photography unit. No one fessed up, so he puts a tape recorder in the room. Turns out it's the pretty new married science teacher and the principal, who was at least 15 years older and whose wife was also a teacher, 2 rooms down the hall, meeting up and having a physical affair late at night once everyone else had left. Both people denied it at first. Then more evidence came out and both admitted the truth and resigned before they could be fired. He had been a prominent figure in the community and at the school for over 8 years. The teacher moved away and I never heard exactly what happened to the principal. I was 12 when all this happened, other than he moved away also, but his reputation was completely destroyed in the community. TLDR, married principal and married teacher got caught having an affair in a classroom, both reputations destroyed. Edit. Spelling and add the word in TLDR? Laggy Lad said, during middle school our campus was basically a dump for any young adults and weird creepy old men. I could go on and on about weird things happening there, from a 40-year-old man selling ice cream in that one notorious white van to the students on school grounds, to literally being incapable of walking 5 feet without stepping on, or finding some dusty crusty used condom. Anyway, I have seen a lot of shit within my 2 years learning there, not to mention the teachers. But I'll get to the point. So I was in 7th grade and with the motto among the young adults that our school grounds were their dump for adult toys and all that, eventually a particularly interesting toy got on our school grounds. It was blue half-broken adult toy tossed up in a tree, so us being a bunch of middle schoolers with an adolescent mindset thought it was the funniest shit we ever saw. Eventually one of the school clowns caught wind of the situation and barreled to the tree, climbed up it, and grabbed the huge half-broken dong. With his newfound toy of interest he proceeded to fucking run around the campus smacking any unsuspecting students with the thing like a off-brand Luke Skywalker who happened to be a freak. He surprisingly was never caught by staff. Our whole school thought it was funny and kept our mouths shut and didn't say a word. And to be honest, it is still pretty funny. Salutes to you, ya mad lad, wherever you may be today. Live for Real said, this may seem strange, but we had bomb threats constantly. At least once a month. It was so common we didn't even think about it. Never a bomb found, though. It was a standard fire drill thing. Get up, line up, shuffle out the door to the field behind the school. Wait, then file back in. Usually missed the test it was planned, which was the whole idea for the prankster. When things hit the fan, though, was when interracial dating started. A white boy got upset his girl chose a black boy as her date. So, the white stabbed the black boy. Naturally, the Klan get upset and this triggered more stupidity. The messed up thing was that she wasn't the first white girl to date blacks. She was only the first one to bounce between them. Live for Real said, this may seem strange, but we had bomb threats constantly. At least once a month. It was so common we didn't even think about it. Never a bomb found, though. It was a standard fire drill thing. Get up, line up, shuffle out the door to the field behind the school. Wait, then file back in. Usually missed the test it was planned, which was the whole idea for the prankster. When things hit the fan, though, was when interracial dating started. A white boy got upset his girl chose a black boy as her date. So, the white stabbed the black boy. Naturally, the Klan get upset and this triggered more stupidity. The messed up thing was that she wasn't the first white girl to date blacks. She was only the first one to bounce between them. Darth Dragon said, had two. One was there was an accident over the weekend and the fire department and principal decided to haul the wreck over and leave it on display in the parking lot. 3 kids died in the car and they didn't even hose it out, just pulled out what was left of the kids and dropped it off. 0 of the kids in the car were drunk or high. They broke no rules of the road or laws. They got T-boned by a truck that ran a light. Making the only lesson LOL, they died while driving. Stare at their blood now. Second one was a bomb squad rolled through the school one day. It was seen by my class in the class next 2 hours, and the same fucking principal as before decided to announce that there never was any bomb squad or cops on site at all, and any rumors to the contrary were lies. They locked us all in the building while the squad checked the outbuildings while he made that speech. Several of us got suspended for telling everyone else who was really lying. Pisses me off to this day his knee-jerk reaction was to both lie to us and lock us into a building that wasn't cleared. That principal ended up the mayor. I exist 666 said, 8th grade. The new girl sent ended to the popular boy's cousin. Popular boy's cousin sends it to popular boy. Popular boy sends it to entire school, including the 7th and 6th grade. Both the popular boy and new girl get suspended for a few days. Few months later, the new girl convinces one of her Malay friends to date a girl at school. Few days into their relationship, the girl gets RP'd by the boy. Boy goes to juvie and girl hasn't come back to school. I tried to be friends with the new girl at the start of the year since she was my locker neighbor, but I stopped associating myself with her when I found out that the reason she was new was that she got expelled from her last school when she sent ended to everyone in the grade. McFeely Smackip said, NSFW. As the story went, there was a senior girl who was selling $20 blowjobs to the football team. This was going on for some time with nobody the wiser. Then she got caught in the act by the girl's pay teacher, and when she told the girl that she was going to have to report it, the girl offered her sex in return for keeping quiet, so the two commenced on a daily lunchtime munch session. Then the two of them got caught by the boy's pay teacher, and to keep him quiet, both started doing him in a three-way physical education fuckfest. Eventually the three of them got caught by another teacher who turned them all in. The next day the two teachers and the girl were gone, never to be seen again. That's the story. At least what I factually know is true is two things. With no warning, two teachers and one female student all left the school simultaneously. I would definitely have gone for a $20 blowjob. Michelle Tesritz said, when I was 18 I went off to a university in another state. Had to live by myself for the first time while also moving to a completely new city. Reason I chose to do this was because my family was moving to a completely different state, so I figured I'd have to leave my friends and life behind either way. Might as well go to the uni that sounded the best. I enrolled to do a photography graphic design course since I enjoyed editing images and stuff. The issue was that not only did I have to deal with finding my independence, but I also soon found out that the course was outdated and just generally terrible. I wasn't learning anything useful, and for the amount of money universities cost I felt like I was getting scammed. Eventually I reached my breaking point when I had a class that involved me doing a life drawing of a nude old lady. Yeah, like the clichés. All of a sudden I realized this particular university was so bad that they managed to muddle a photography graphic design course into an art course, and I wasn't about to drop $30K on an art degree. No offense, artists. Went to Student Central after that class and explained the situation. They told me that I just missed the 4-week curfew to cancel my course and get out debt-free. I tried my hardest to explain my situation as it was literally a day or two after the curfew, but they didn't give a shit. I realized then that this particular uni didn't care about the success of employment, just the enrollment stats. Spent the remaining 6 weeks in my dorm depressed as shit with sleepless nights. Fast forward those 6 weeks and I'm back with my family in my new home. I decided to go through my backlog of emails one day and noticed one from the university. It was discussing the recent event where a student had gone to the Student Central and threatened the university employees with a combat knife. They were arrested. They must have had a similar experience to me with the university, possibly worse. I always think back to this email. The surreal nature of it and my personal experience kinda go hand in hand, and I often think that in an alternative universe that person could have been me.